A healthy child entered a laboratory with no fear of animals. He laughed. He played. He reached out and touched them without hesitation. A few weeks later, he was terrified. Not just of one animal, of anything that looked remotely similar. The scientists called the experiment a success. Many others would later call it one of the most disturbing studies ever performed on a child. The strange part is that it worked. In 1920, a psychologist named John Watson wanted to answer a question that had divided scientists for generations. Where does fear come from? Are humans born afraid, or do we learn fear from the world around us? At the time, nobody knew. Watson believed fear wasn't something you were born with. He believed it could be created, and to prove it, he designed an experiment. His subject was a baby boy known only as Little Albert. At the beginning of the study, Albert was calm and curious. The researchers showed him a white rat. Albert reached for it, touched it, played with it. There was no fear. So Watson began the experiment. Every time Albert touched the rat, the researchers struck a steel bar with a hammer behind him. The noise was sudden, loud, terrifying. Albert cried immediately. Then they repeated it. The rat appeared. The noise exploded. Albert cried. Again, and again, and again. Eventually, the researchers removed the noise. Only the rat remained. But something had changed. The moment Albert saw the rat, he began to cry. The fear was still there. His brain had connected the rat with the frightening sound. Today, we call this classical conditioning, the same learning process that helps animals and humans connect one experience to another. But the researchers weren't finished. They wanted to know something else. Would Albert fear only the rat, or would the fear spread? The answer was disturbing. Soon Albert became afraid of a rabbit, then a fur coat, then cotton, even a Santa Claus mask. None of those things had been paired with the loud noise, but they looked similar enough for his brain to group them together. The fear had escaped its original target. Psychologists call this generalization, and once you understand it, you begin to see it everywhere. A bad experience with one dog can become a fear of all dogs. One embarrassing moment can become a fear of public speaking. One painful failure can become a fear of trying again. The original event disappears. The reaction remains. For years, the Little Albert experiment was celebrated as a breakthrough. It appeared to prove that fears could be learned. But as time passed, another question emerged. Not whether the experiment worked, but whether it should have happened at all. Albert was a child. He couldn't consent. He didn't understand what was happening, and the researchers never clearly showed that they removed the fear afterward. Modern psychologists look back at the study very differently. Today, an experiment like this would never be approved. Ethics committees would stop it immediately. Not because the science was useless, but because the cost was too high. The study helped reveal something important about human behavior. But it also revealed something important about science itself. Knowledge has limits. There are questions we want answered, and there are lines we shouldn't cross to answer them. But the strangest part of the story isn't what happened in the laboratory. It's what happened afterward. Because decades later, researchers realized they weren't even completely sure who Little Albert actually was. Records were incomplete. Names had been changed. Evidence conflicted. The most famous child in psychology had almost disappeared from history. More than a century later, scientists still debate his true identity. And in a strange way, that uncertainty feels fitting. Because the experiment was never really about Albert. It was about all of us. Every person watching this video carries fears they didn't consciously choose. Experiences shape us. Sometimes without permission, sometimes without us even noticing. Your brain is constantly learning, constantly connecting events together, constantly deciding what is safe and what is dangerous. Most of the time, that system protects you. Sometimes it traps you. A fear forms. The original cause fades away. And years later, you're still reacting to something you no longer remember. That's what made the Little Albert experiment so powerful. It showed that fear can be built. But there's another side to that discovery. If fear can be learned, It can also be unlearned. The same brain that creates fear can weaken it, change it, rewrite it. And that may be the most important lesson hidden inside this story. A child walked into a room with no fear of a white rat. A few weeks later, he left with one.